Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in our country over the past week or so. And I want to begin by saying good evening to all those who are joining us on television in Region 5, stretching from Mahaika to West Coast Berbice, all the way to Blairmont, Ithaca, if possible, across Region 5, and I also want to welcome and say good evening to all those who are joining us on the east bank of the Berbice River, New Amsterdam, and of course, right across the Quarantine Coast. All of those, uh, all of those people who are joining us on television, good evening. I also want to welcome all of you who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Rob Street, Georgetown, good evening. And I want to welcome finally all of you, thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live across Guyana, across the Caribbean, across North America, Europe, Australia, Asia. Good evening and welcome to another program of Issues in the News. I want also to invite you to take this opportunity to inform your friends, inform your relatives, inform your family that issues in the news is live and invite them to join our discussion this evening. We have a packed agenda of important issues and I want to speak a little as the program picks up, as many persons continue to join us. Please press that share button on your Facebook profile and share this program to your hundreds and thousands of friends across the globe. Once again, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And I want to begin by congratulating our teachers, our students, our staff, and of course the Ministry of Education, headed by our competent Minister of Education, for reopening schools across the country last Monday to begin face to face classes. It was never going to be easy. It is not an easy decision, but we have to take the bull by the horns in certain cases, and we have to fight this COVID disease and this COVID virus as it seeks to shut down this country, as it seeks to shut down the world. We have to fight it, and we have to fight it on every front. Opening our schools, returning our education system to some degree of normalcy is something that we aspired for, we planned for, and we have begun the process of of beginning the return to normalcy in our education system. No one, no one is doing an impact on the effect that this year-long closure of our school system is likely to have on our education system. I believe that when that impact is done, I believe that the effect that 1 year of closure of our schools would have had on our education system would be devastating. And the quicker we return to normalcy, the better for all of us in Guyana. And that is why I want to take this opportunity to congratulate our teachers, congratulate our parents, congratulate the hardworking staff of our Ministry of Education for putting on that brave front and taking the matter, taking the bull by its horns and reopening our schools and putting our children back to learning in a conventional type of environment. This is what we need to do as we continue to battle with the COVID virus. The government of Guyana continues to aggressively pursue its vaccination program as we continue to vaccinate children, as we continue to vaccinate parents, as we continue to vaccinate teachers and employees in all sectors of our economy. We have to continue to aggressively push this vaccination exercise. And I pause here to say again and to lament the position of the opposition. Because on the one hand, I hear Dr. Karen Cummings saying to the press, and her statements were published in the press, that herself and the opposition leader are fully supportive of the vaccination program and that they are encouraging persons to take their vaccines, that they want every single Guyanese to take their vaccines, that they believe in the vaccination program, that they believe that we must vaccine fully and we must take the vaccines. Those are the sentiments of Karen Cummings, and she purports to speak for the APNU AFC. Then on the other hand, you have Mr. Roysdale Ford, who purports to speak as acting leader of the opposition, and he condemns the government vaccination program, and he condemns the government's imposition of new measures if one is not vaccinated. You can't be supporting the vaccination program on the one hand and then on the other hand be objecting to the measures that the government is imposing to have complicity and compliance with the vaccination program on the basis that the government is coercing persons to take the vaccines. It's either you support the vaccine or you don't support the vaccine. It's as simple as that. So again, the APNU AFC in its leadership are sending mixed signals, are sending confusing signals, and are being hypocritical and duplicitous. Not to mention, of course, or not to forget rather, that they, through their satellite organizations, the public service unions, the teacher service union, and the trade union congress, and through their candidate Darren Wade, and through their member of parliament Coretta MacDonald, and through their sidekick Lincoln Lewis and Gardner, they have all combined their efforts and they have filed legal proceedings in the High Court seeking to shut down completely the government's vaccination program and seeking to shut down completely all the measures that the government is seeking to implement to protect the public health of our citizens and to protect our country from the rapacious and deadly COVID-19 virus. These persons, if they are to have their way and if they are to succeed in their litigious efforts, they would like the court to shut down completely all the measures that the government is implementing. So they want us to do not mask. They want us to assemble as if nothing is happening. They do not want us to sanitize. They do not want us to take any measures to combat the COVID-19 virus. That is, in essence, what they are asking the court to do. So you find the APNU AFC sending these divergent and inconsistent signals and taking actions that are completely inconsistent with positions that they are taking and actions that are detrimental to the public good and to the public at large. But that is usual. That is how the APNU AFC operates. The government, however, will continue to follow the trend that is taking place across the globe, and we will continue to follow the protocols and the guidelines that are being promulgated by international health organizations such as the WHO, PAHO, and other important medical institutions across the globe. We will continue to be guided, and indeed, we have promulgated our newest set of COVID measures, and in those measures, we have said that no person will be admitted into public buildings without those persons being vaccinated. And you have to show evidence of being vaccinated, unless, of course, you satisfy the exception of making an appointment or coming with a PCR test. Only then that you will be admitted into a public building. And public building has been defined to include any building, including privately owned building to which the public has access. So that includes, for your edification, any shop, any store, any restaurant, any mall, any cinema, any shopping area, any offices, any area to which the public has access, that where the public can walk in and walk out, are caught by that definition. And any of those offices to which any person wishes to have access, those persons must present their COVID virus, their vaccine, evidence of their vaccine, their vaccination cards. And that is the intent of the last or latest set of COVID-19 measures. And I want to say that I have read the legal opinion of Sir Dennis Byron, former Caribbean Court of Justice President, and Professor Rosemary Bellantwine of the University of the West Indies, who wrote together an opinion advising the OECS heads of government and on COVID-19. And I read that opinion very carefully, very elaborate opinion, well thought out, well researched, and based upon established legal principles, in my respectful and humble view. And all of Guyana's efforts and all of Guyana's measures have been vindicated and are embraced in that opinion. In other words, what we are doing in Guyana accords with the principles adumbrated and outlined in that legal opinion of the former president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, and Professor Rosemary Antwine, in their opinion to the OECS heads of government. And I am pleased that we are walking alongside those governments in what they are doing. And based upon the analysis contained in that legal opinion, we have acted consistently with what the law says. And what does the law say? In a nutshell, the law says, in relation to COVID-19, that the public health measures which are being taken under the public health ordinance or public health legislation are valid, that fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual must bend and bow to the importance of public health and the public good, that the individual rights and freedoms are not absolute but must be curtailed so that the public good and the rights and freedoms of others are respected, that the public health of the society and of the citizens of a society are of paramount importance and must prevail over individual rights, that vaccines are nothing new or is not a new measure, and that we have had mandatory vaccines in the Caribbean and in the Commonwealth since 1974, that in any event, all of the rights that people are invoking, including those rights guaranteed by the Constitution, are subject to restrictions. For example, the right to travel is dependent upon you getting a passport. Your right to freedom of movement is subject to you observing the traffic laws, and you can't drive up against a one-way street, etc., etc., etc. So all the rights arguments that people have been advancing have been rejected, and have been rejected by courts that have adjudicated in these cases. The European uh, Human Rights Court have pronounced on this matter. Our High Court have pronounced on this matter as well. We had a case where someone had challenged the legality of the COVID measures in 2020, and our court rejected the challenge and said that the COVID measures were for the public good and are therefore valid and binding and enforceable. So I spent some time to explain that to you so that you don't get caught up and don't buy into the argument that they are spewing all over the place, that speaks of individual rights and individual freedoms. Of course, you have an individual freedom to move as you wish, but if you want to move and enter a particular building, then you must observe the rules governing entry of that building. And if the rules say that you must produce a vaccine card and you don't have the vaccine card, well, too bad. You have a right to enter a cinema, but if you don't have the money to pay the entrance fee, you can't go there and claim that you have a right to enter and that your freedom of movement is being restricted, because your freedom of movement is now subject to an entry fee to enter that building. Well, similarly, your freedom of movement to enter any building is now subject to the production of a vaccination card. It is as simple as that. And nothing is illegal or unlawful about that. So I just wanted to spend some time to explain to people so that you have a fair understanding of what the law is and how the law works. I keep saying to people that the law is based upon common sense. What you think is commonsensical is usually legal. What is nonsensical is usually illegal. And that is a safe rule of thumb. That is a safe rule of thumb to follow in any given circumstances. I want to also caution that despite the efforts that are being made by the government, persons are still being admitted into hospitals across the country with COVID-19 virus infections. And as I indicated last week, and when someone was asking me to name the country, that hospitals are under pressure across the region because they are finding it difficult to cope with the intake of patients into their custody. They are running out of oxygen, they are running out of space, and someone asked me to name the countries. Well, let me tell you, Jamaica is one and Bahamas is another. Right now, they have difficulty in maintaining a suitable oxygen supply, as well as maintaining sufficient space in the emergency unit of their main medical centers. We are not, we are struggling with those realities here too. I heard the Minister of Health speaking about us nearing optimal occupancy of our emergency capabilities at the COVID hospital. So it is a dire situation, and we have to act collectively, and we have to act responsibly, because this is a serious matter. Anyhow, what I can assure you is that the government will continue to do all that it can to ensure the public health of our citizens are maintained and the public health of our country continues to remain safe. So I want to move on now and to speak about um, the handing over of 50 vehicles to the Guyana Police Force by the government of Guyana, in particular the president, yesterday at Ivlery, Georgetown. I had the privilege of being present to saw some spanking new pickups, 50 of them, being handed over to the Guyana Police Force to boost the force's capability to respond to reports. You know, regularly, right across the length and breadth of Guyana, you get complaints that whenever persons call the Guyana Police Force, the response always seems to be, we don't have enough vehicles, we don't have a vehicle now, the vehicles are out on patrol, and we simply can't, as a result, respond to your report or to your complaint. Well, 2 years ago or thereabouts, I recall over 100 and something vehicles were donated by the Chinese, and some 30 or 40 of those vehicles are now still functioning. The rest are down and are in mechanic shops across Guyana or have been wrecked. That is totally unacceptable. The police are being specifically trained by the importers of these vehicles on how to use them. I am aware that the suppliers of the vehicle are offering backup services and have spare parts in stock when things go wrong or when there is need for repairs to be effected. But importantly, the Guyana Police Force and its members must be able to care these vehicles, not to abuse them, to treat them as if money is paid for them, that taxpayers' dollars are paid for them, and they must only be used for the purpose for which they are purchased. And as the President correctly said, must not be used for joyrides and for personal errands, but must be used for the public good and must be used in a responsible manner. And when something goes wrong with it, it must be effectively and quickly repaired and not be parked and allowed to deteriorate, as you see vehicles rotting in police stations across the country. Monies are required to buy these things. And we are investing as a government a lot of money in crime and in crime fighting. This is just one example. We are also investing in the forensic capabilities of the police force and the forensic capability of the state to investigate and to prosecute criminal offenses. We have the lab, the forensic lab at the University of Guyana that we are now resuscitating. It had become dormant under the APNU AFC. In fact, it barely has any staff. We are now in the process of securing qualified personnel to equip that lab. And I speak about forensic experts in the area of ballistics, in the area of handwriting, in the area of forensic medicine, in the area of forensic analysis, in the area of forensic photography, and in the area of crime scene investigation capabilities. These are important areas where the skill sets are very scarce but very requisite for a successful investigation of crime to take place. What we must recognize is that crime has changed tremendously and is changing. The face of crime is becoming radically different. The manner in which crime is being committed is radically different. Sophistication has entered the criminal field. Technology is there to help the criminals. Computers and all of its many facets are there to help the criminals. Sophisticated firearms are there to help the criminals. So, naturally, police forces across the globe and crime fighting units across the globe must respond with reciprocity to these dynamic changes that are taking place in the criminal arena. And that is why the state response has to be a sophisticated one too, has to be a scientific one. Hence, we are building this basis and this forensic capabilities on the part of the state. And that brings me to the role that the Legal Affairs Ministry is playing in the whole process. That is why we are introducing this prosecutorial program into the magistrates' court. If within the next year we can put a LLB student trained to prosecute in each magistrate court across the length and breadth of this country, we would have transformed the quality of prosecution across Guyana. Because all things being equal, a LLB degree holder who is specially trained to prosecute must be in a position to offer qualitatively superior services than a policeman who is a trained prosecutor. And I say so with the greatest of respect to the policeman. And that is why we are training these people, and we are in the process now of preparing the syllabus, and then a one-year program will begin at the University of Guyana, and we will be churning out these prosecutors who will be assigned to the magistrates' court right across the length and breadth of Guyana. And that will be able to enhance the quality of prosecutorial services on behalf of the state. Many people believe that justice is about the rights of the accused person alone. It's not. Justice is not a one-way street, but it's a two-way carriageway. You have the victims of crime who also are deserving of justice. You have the public good who also, or which also, must be taken into account. While the accused rights and freedoms are important, the victims of crime are also equally important. And justice is about striking a balance between the two. Not having a system that protects only the accused person and the victims of crime remain without remedy. That is an unfair system. The state has an obligation to protect the rights and freedoms of the accused, as well as to protect the victims of crime, to ensure that they get the justice that the law provides for them whenever their rights have been infringed or whether they have suffered some wrong at the hands of some criminal. And that is why we have to ensure that we maintain this balance, and the state has a duty to ensure that that is done. So, another component that we are concentrating on in assisting the police is building a different type of penal system. You know, over the years, we have had a different form of trying to punish criminals who are convicted by courts. So you try with the more rough side of punishment. You jail people with hard labor, you impose long terms of imprisonment, you impose flogging, you impose solitary confinement, you lock people up in different prison systems. That have not worked. That have not worked, and in fact has led to another set of problems, creating mental health and other issues in the penal system. We are now working with the Guyana Police Force and the Guyana Prison System, meaning we, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, to fashion a different style of punishment. And that is why you see legislation having a different focus now. So you have you will have you will have a focus now away from custodial sentence and for punishment to be different. You have something called restorative justice. There's a whole system that we are trying to implement in Guyana, which seeks to remove custodial sentence or reduce custodial sentence from the legal system of our country, and to have alternative form of punishment for those who violate the law. And that is where the world is going in terms of crime and punishment. And we have to pursue those kinds of avenues. And the Legal Affairs Ministry is partnering with the Guyana Police Force, with the Guyana Prison Service, and of course with the judiciary in ensuring that we have all these concepts and precepts involved in our criminal justice system. I want to continue by reminding all the farmers whose properties and farms were affected by floodwaters that the government flood relief program continues through the agency of the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Minister of Agriculture is spearheading that initiative to distribute to all those farmers who would have contributed their names into that system and would have submitted the relevant information. Please ensure that you receive the requisite assistance in the form of checks that is being distributed by the government of Guyana through the Ministry of Agriculture across the length and breadth of Guyana. I believe the exercise is now taking place in Region 5 and Region 10. It will move to the other regions as the program continues to unfold. Another important issue that I want to deal with is the replacement at GCOM of the important Chief Elections Officer and Deputy Chief Elections Officer. Now, I don't know what process will be embarked upon to select these two persons. One hopes that it will be a competitive process, that the process will be transparent, that it will accord with uh, standards of fairness, and that the system would be able to withstand scrutiny, and a candidate would be identified and selected based upon meritocracy and not irrelevant considerations. These are very important statutory of positions, and we have to ensure that these positions are filled by competent persons and by persons with integrity. We have had our hands burnt terribly by previous persons holding this office, and we don't have to pretend that we don't know the damage which can be done to our democracy and to our country if the wrong persons assume these positions. So I hope that GCOM is thinking in that direction, and that steps are being taken to move that process forward. I want to briefly mention a very important statement that the president made when he was addressing a meeting at Lethem, Region 9. The president spoke about the establishment of a tax free zone in that region. Well, if you look at our manifesto, you would see that that is one of the many promises that we made, the establishment of tax free zones at several locations in the country. So I am happy that the president has announced that one will be opened in Region 9. Others should be opened, I think, in Region 6 as well, and Region 2, to create jobs and to invite trade and commerce in those areas. These kinds of initiatives are normally transformative in terms of the activities that they can generate at any given location. So I am happy that the president has spoken about this issue, and of course, this will require legislation and will require the input of the Legal Affairs Ministry. This is where I want to say good night. I believe that we have exhausted our time on the program this evening. We have touched on a number of important issues, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for spending the past hour with me and for being part of the program. I want to take this opportunity also to wish you all the best for the coming week, and please take care and join us next week as we continue our discourse on issues in the news. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.